Today we are joined by Marianne de Wolff, who's dialing in from the Netherlands today. Welcome, Marianne. It's good to have you here.
Nice to be here,
Okay, so
Sarah.
quick intro. Since her late 20s, Marianne has been on the path of inner healing and self discovery. She's explored many different pathways in her pursuit to come back home to herself. Human design, gene keys, soul astrology, and family constellations have brought her the deepest experience and insight. So today, Marianne feels passionate about contributing to a new world where each and every one of us is living our true selves, realizing that we are all interconnected, a world in which we serve the greater whole by each sharing our unique gifts. Marianne, that was a beautiful biography that you sent through. I really, and it's got so many things in it that we can talk about today. Welcome. Thank you so much for accepting the invite and joining me today.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me, Nadine.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it's always
really,
lovely to talk about these things.
yeah, it's totally like any chance,
Totally.
any
Yeah.
chance. So do you want to give us a little rundown? You've been on a voyage of self-discovery for some years, since your early 20s, which no doubt has had its twists and turns.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Well, how can you describe can you remember how that first began to unfold for you?
Yes. Yeah, certainly. I think I've always felt a little bit lost on the earth and always trying to find some completion, you know, in a relationship, in things to do, and uh, it never came about really. So I was young, longing for um, Mr. Right. And I think when I was 26, my father died. And I think a year before that, I started my first therapy sessions. And it was very much focused on inner healing. And I think that's really where it started. And at the time, I was still working with the airlines and flying around the world. But I just felt a deep sense of loss within myself. So that was for me the drive to start searching. And because my dad died, that was big, had a big impact. And from then on, therapy became more intense. And I started to look into different things and what can I do to heal myself. And I stopped working with the airlines and then I became a massage therapist and started to work through the body to heal. And then I thought, oh, well, that's not enough. And people end up coming just for a massage, but I wanted to dive deeper. And then I read a book, I think 30 years ago, maybe even a little bit more. And it was by Krishnamurti, and the book was called You Are the World. And it was, I think, my first big awakening moment. Like every cell in my body just knew this is true. Everything I see is a project, something I project outside. If I want something to complete me, it's a lack within me. So that's been the drive to connect with my true self, to find who am I really. And we're so focused in our personalities, which of course is normal. That's how we grow up and we need it. But how can we, um, I don't want to say let go, but transform that within us and start to see life from a different perspective? And that's what helped me a lot is to see things from a bigger perspective, whether it's through soul astrology, just learning about the path of the soul brings what happens in your life in a different perspective, and it starts to make more sense. And it's just finding out that what happens, and no matter where you are or what's happening, that it's the right thing for you uh, in that time in your life. And I always say, the soul sets the stage for our experiences. And that's not always easy for our personalities because it can create a lot of pain and hurt and drama. And we definitely should embrace that and try to heal that and yeah, accept it. I think acceptance is a big word, which is not always easy because we have a very strong mind and we love the stories we tell ourselves. And so that's what took me there. And then I think in 2004, astrology has always been part of my life, you know. In my early 20s, I had my first reading. And you know, we're going back 40 years. 40. Oh, gosh. There was nothing. Gosh, there was nothing. You know, it was the notes in the supermarket and the brochure in the library, and that's it. It was word of mouth. And now we're so lucky to have internet and to be able to talk to you across the world. That's just great, you know. But at the time, which was also had its charm, it was small and local, and and doing inner work and healing was really different from what it is now. So there's an evolution in everything, and also in consciousness work, and then new systems started to arrive, like evolutionary astrology, human design, and a little bit later the gene keys, and also family constellations. I think it's all about 25 years ago. I feel that maybe a new kind of gate opened up and brought down these new systems to help us evolve and learn from it. So yeah, so that was great to find those systems to work with. Definitely, yeah.
Wow. There we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so it's been a long journey, but it's you know, yeah, picking up a lot of things, letting go of a lot of things, and also learning to trust my inner voice, and that's something that human design helps with greatly, and family constellations, to really trust my inner knowing. And it's still, you know, it's an ongoing process. It always, yeah, something comes up, and then but to have the tools to work with it is just great.
Yeah.
And also learning that imperfection is very perfect. That's still a struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like you said, it feels like there was a gateway that opened up, and gradually there's more and more people talking about this stuff, and obviously with the introduction of the internet,
yeah,
that growth has just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and probably with
yeah,
people being at home during that period of time in when we were locked down in COVID, probably even
yeah,
more expansion and more
definitely.
availability of information and more people talking about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But and there seems to be a real connection for many people about this healing and trauma, and that's being spoken about a lot more now than it was like even in my world anyway, 5 or 10 years ago. You had the odd person that you might know that was going to therapy, but now it's like quite common to hear people talking about processing their trauma, and healing themselves.
Hmm.
I know that you said that when you were in your 20s, like you started to see a therapist just like a year before your dad passed away.
Yes.
What do you mind me asking? Like, what was it that kind of said to you, I need to talk to someone about what's going
I
on?
was struggling with my relationships, you know. I really
Totally,
wanted to be a
it was
partner.
mostly relationships.
It was, I think that was the first big struggle, was relationships, and finding the wrong man, which were
Okay.
of course perfectly right for me, but um, they were either married, unavailable, or whatever. And then I thought, okay, why? I think from an early age, I already had big questions like, why? What's heaven like? Why are we
Okay.
here? What is eternity? What is So I feel that people who really want to bring something new to the world, and I'm glad there are so many people, but you have the seed in your soul, I always say, to bring that transformation. And then automatically you go and find help. And right now it's easier because, when you just Google, I don't know, relationship problems or challenges, there are thousands of methods and therapies and books you can read. And that's great. I think that's great because it's so helpful. I think if we really want to make a shift in the world, we really need to change our perspective and heal, and not just change. But I always say there's a difference between change and transformation. And change is like I put a different color on the wall and buy some new furniture. And for me, transformation is really, the house is coming down and you build a new house. That's transformation. And I think that's the time we're living in. It's this huge paradigm shift. And so it's exciting times to be alive. And yeah, who knows where it will take us.
Yeah.
And then it's great that we have systems that can help us in this transformation.
Yeah. Amidst your, like, we're going to get stuck. I want to ask you some questions about human design because we're in a human design
Yeah.
community together, and the
Yeah.
gene keys because I've worked with the gene keys as well.
Yeah.
But and the family constellations, which I have really know nothing about, but I've heard you mention it in the group calls that we're on.
Yeah.
And I've just, what was I going to say? I've forgotten. Oh,
Uh,
I know. So,
okay.
in your journey with
Yeah.
these particular modalities, did you
Mhm.
come to them thinking, I can use this for my own self journey, or did you come to them thinking I could do that as to help me with my job, my role, my
Yeah. Both.
my service to
Both.
others? Okay.
Yeah. No, both, because yeah, I think that's important. You have to get to know the system yourself and live through it and work with it for yourself in order to be able to work with it uh, for other people. Um, and at first, I think it was I believe in 2004 that I first came in touch with human design,
Wow, that's quite a
which
while ago.
that's a long time ago. And I remember I was it was a lecture, and it was an all-day event. And I think there were about 80 people listening there in the lecture, attending the lecture. And what stood out for me the most is that, in human design, we have the different types. You know about that. We have the reflector and the projector and the generators, manifesting generators, and the manifestors. And what she did, she asked every type to stand together it was a big room, to come together and stand in with their own group. It was amazing. We know about generators, they have this sacral energy and they have this buzz. I could hear the buzz. When you put all those generators together, you can hear the buzz. And then I could clearly feel and see that the others didn't have that.
Wow.
So that was my first, and those experiences, they stay, they last, and because I sensed it in my body, and I never forgot it, and I never forgot how powerful that was. So that was, you could say, the first. It's not a family constellation, but you can put everything in a constellation. It was my first experience with a human design constellation. And it was amazing. And it was just type. So no exploring the body graph or whatever. So that made that had a big impression on me. And then I thought, okay, great. And then I thought, well, at the time I thought, I had a hard time with labels. I still have a hard time with labeling things and people. So I thought, yeah, but you cannot, divide humanity in 5 types. That's stupid. So, but slowly it kept returning, and I think it's only, I think before COVID that I started to come back to it. And in
Okay.
the meantime, I also discovered gene keys and longer before that, I worked with astrology and family constellations, and they're amazing tools. It's I every time I think, oh gosh, this is magic. How does it happen? And you can't make it up, which I like. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's yeah, really interesting how you can see though that interconnectedness, like you talked about in your biography. You talked about the, interconnectedness of all things, and you start to just see it more and more. You see it in life, you hear it in people's stories. I mean, this is one of the things that I think is really fascinating about the people I talk to. We have these connections of stories, we recognize things in each other and in these systems. And you don't like labeling things. I don't like calling human design a system. It makes it sound so boring.
I know. I think I have
Like,
another
what
name
is
for
it? A
it.
method?
Let's come up with something better.
An amazing thing.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's great to have an understanding of those different things and to be able to draw on them. Although some people like to be purists and just hang in
Great.
one area. Do you think that has anything to do with your design?
Well, maybe, yeah. It's sad that a manifesting generator just likes to, you
Do
know,
lots of things.
do lots of different things, which is true. Uh, but again, it's how we're wired and it's how we're supposed to do things in life. And I can sometimes envy people who have the ability to dive so deep and stay with one thing.
Mm.
And then it becomes it becomes your life. And I have this big toolbox that I, take things from when I need them. And so it all has a different, how do you say that, charm to it. We're all wired differently. And that's how, that's the nicest thing about humanity, isn't it? About being human, that we're all so different.
Yes.
And yeah, and the interconnectedness, even now, and that started to, those are all gateways, I feel, that started up along in the past, well, maybe 50 years, it has really taken on a different, how do you say that? A different, I'm looking for the right word in
I'm not
English.
sure.
No, it has taken on a whole different
Flavor?
flavor. No, oh, let's forget about it. It took a big leap. That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. So,
Momentum. It's got gained momentum,
yeah,
maybe.
because when you look back, maybe even when I was younger in the 60s and before that, all you knew was, oh, we had newspapers. So okay, before that, it was the village and the street where you lived, and then it was the city, and then it was your country, and now it's the whole world. So if you speak about interconnectedness, that's an evolution that we've seen happening over the past, what is it, 60 years, maybe 70 years? So
Yeah.
if you talk about interconnectedness, then, and even the internet, inventions like that, new things coming in, showing us that we are connected and it's easier to connect. And even with a simple thing as COVID that went around the world like crazy, we're connected. We try to set boundaries and borders, but it's energetically, it's no use. It's there anyway.
What do
Yeah.
you think about this idea that I mean, you may not have heard this, but I reckon you probably would, that we're on this kind of journey and it's all part of. I've never read Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, but this idea that we're kind of on this journey where we are born, and we have our soul, and we're going along this path, but it would be kind of boring if we knew what was going to happen in the end. And
I
so we
think
have to
so.
have this kind of adventure of all these different life experiences, and that we actually choose those life experiences as part of
Yeah,
our expression. Have you
definitely. At a soul level, because there are really experiences that you and I wouldn't choose in our
choose?
lives. And
Right.
a lot
Yeah.
of people go through horrible stuff
Mm,
and things. And I truly believe from a bigger perspective, it's meant to be, but from a human perspective, it's horrible.
mm,
And I think what's needed is a lot of compassion and support when you know people when that happens, and so that they can heal.
mm,
And and I'm so happy there are so many modalities around that can help you heal, because it is a human experience. And yeah, it can be very intense for a
mm,
lot of people.
mm,
And I believe you had your share, I had my share, and in the end, if you can look at it from a perspective that says, okay, if this is meant to happen in my life, I always say there's one common, how do you say that? There's one common factor, and there's one
yeah.
common
Denominator.
denominator in my life. It's me. So
Right.
everywhere I go and every experience that I have that I'm a part of, I can shift my perspective, and I can choose how I deal with that. Um, and that took me a long time. I mean, we're all caught up in our personalities um, and this sense of separation that we have, because you are there and I am here. But that's the only thing that we can say. Okay, that's kind of separate. You have your body and I have mine, but emotions, thoughts, energy, uh, it cannot be defined. It's in the ether. It's around us, and
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, so it's one big energy field. Yeah, yeah.
Can you talk? I'm going to get to the family constellations bit, but I'm kind
No,
of
take
dragging
your
it out.
time. Yeah,
Dragging
but
it
that's a
out.
huge part of it too, of being
Yeah.
this one energy field. Yeah, definitely.
Can you talk a little bit about what healing means? Because I think a lot of people, well, and myself included, have, think of this idea of healing as like, I don't know, there's something wrong with you and
Oh
you need to
gosh, yeah,
make it
really,
better.
yeah. Yeah, no, I don't believe that. Um, I
I'm
think
getting better at
healing,
not believing that, but I think that would be a
yeah,
common
that there's something wrong with
thought.
you.
Yeah.
No,
Or
things
how do I
happen.
fix it? That kind
Oh
of.
yeah, I know. Yeah. How do I fix it? Yeah, I know that feeling too. It has to be different or better.
Mm,
But I've been on the path for so long, there's no end to it. And if you want to, yeah, it becomes easier maybe. Um, I think, yeah, healing is for me a deep, deep acceptance of what is. And family constellations is one of the tools that can really help you release old baggage that maybe you're carrying and it's not even yours to carry. So I think that's what healing is: deep acceptance and making a different choice, because we're getting triggered. We have these old traumas, we have these old beliefs. Um, and yeah, you have a choice. you know, at a certain time, you find there is an inner perceiver, or that can sort of watch this movie
The
and say,
witness.
okay, to witness it, and not get so caught up anymore in the storyline, because that's the mind. You know, the mind can repeat the story over and over and over and over again. So at a certain time, and that's also human design is very helpful. The mind is not a decision-making tool, and we use it as a decision-making tool. And of course, our whole life is a story. In the end, you know, our whole life is a story, and your story is different from mine. And do we believe the story, or do we make a different choice?
Do we write
And
the
in the
story?
end, we have a choice. Who do we want to be in this world? And that's a path. You know, I don't believe in quick fixes, or you really have to dare to dive deep inside yourself, and and then you find a place within yourself that's where there's peace and there's love, and that's a place you can choose in yourself. And then within this big field, you know, there's your story or my story, or yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Was going to ask. I actually was going to ask about family constellations, but then something came up, and when you were talking about what we choose what to believe, and I wonder how what your experience with human design and potentially the gene keys as well. My experience is I'm still quite new to human design, like within the first couple of years, and when I got my body graph, my chart, I looked at it and I knew it was me.
Mm.
And when I read about the different gates and channels, I know it's me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of at a point where, and the same with the gene keys as well. It's like and I'm definitely getting more connected with. I've recognized those things and how they play out in my life. But for the human design, especially, like I know it's me, but I'm kind of like, am I actually embodying those things? And there's that whole element of the conditioning, right? What's mine
Mm-hmm.
and what isn't.
Yeah.
How has that played out for you? Like when it comes to, when you were saying you choose your perspective on things, and you choose, what path you go in when you start to become more aware of,
Yeah.
the I guess the illusion of
Mm-hmm.
life,
Yeah.
and how you can have that kind of outward view. How do you figure
Well,
out,
just
or like, how easy have you found it to live the person you truly are in
not
your,
easy.
like, if you
Not easy.
see it in your human
No.
design chart?
Yeah. Well, just a simple example. Um, in human design, we have a defined or an undefined or open emotional center. And it's said that when it's undefined or open, you take in the emotions from other people, and you even, make them bigger. You reflect them in a stronger way than they are. I've always been surrounded. All the men in my life, starting with my dad, have defined emotional centers. So there's a lesson for me there. And what I know is that it's easy to take in the emotions of other people. But the moment, and then to say, yeah, but they're not mine, they're yours, that's easy. But it can also become a kind of spiritual bypassing, because we have our beliefs, and of course there are emotions attached to it. And so I always feel that when it stays in me, when I can't let go of it, or my mind keeps making stories around it, I can say, oh, well, Nadine, they're yours. No, it's in my system. and it's playing out in my body. So I have to do with it. And does it matter really? So if we are a collective, and if we are to heal the collective, because that's also what it's about. It starts with us, but it has an effect on the collective. So what does it matter if I do it and clear out the emotion? Or I think the biggest challenge is to not always say it's mine, it's my emotion, it's my no, it's an emotion. So to neutralize it a little bit. And of course there are emotions like, and then we come to family constellations, they're genetically imprinted, and which is also gene keys and human design, it's the genetics. Again, we're not separate from our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, the whole lineage, all the ancestors that came before us, we are connected. So of course they're parts of their behavior or belief systems that are genetically imprinted in us. I think that's, yeah, for me, that makes so much sense. So,
I think one of the things that I found quite helpful as well is because we can look at our chart and we can read the kind of the darker aspect or the shadow aspect, or we can recognize that at first when we see or read anything about it.
yeah,
But that we have that, when you're talking about that choice, it's like we have the choice to express that energy or that genetic makeup in a different way.
yeah,
So if we're
yeah,
not, yeah, so when we kind of can see those things playing out, that
yeah,
often they can be sort of low energy
yeah. And I know
themes
it's,
like fear, victimization, anger,
yeah,
those kind of.
but they're all, and that's what I like about gene keys. Of course, we have the shadow, the gift, and the divine essence.
Yeah.
Uh, but the shadow is so important because it's part of our lives. I think, and I've been there too, we have to really be careful not to want to become too perfect. We're human and we carry all these parts within us. It's the ugly and the best things. It's there. And it depends on where you are or what is triggered or what your life is like, what is more at the surface sometimes, and when you get to a stage that you can, people in horrible circumstances, like, in the Second World War or in Auschwitz, or, some people came out almost enlightened. So, gosh, I have so much, I admire these people so much that have been able to find that eternal place inside themselves in those horrible circumstances. It's like, wow, so it is possible. And yeah, but it takes, I think, courage and a lot of awareness to be able to do that.
Yeah, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right.
And yeah, so that's huge. So, and I always think, if one person can do it, other people can do it too. And that's a start.
Yes, and
Yeah.
again, there's that idea of the collective, or the everything being,
Yeah.
affecting everything else. Like
Yeah.
having that experience and sharing it with someone else. If they have that experience, then there's that
Yeah.
knock on effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
And
is
I
a
know
big
from,
part of the what you were talking about with the greater whole, and that evolution of humanity
yeah, I think that's where
is.
we're at. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I don't know, unless you live under a rock, you know that the whole world is shifting.
yeah,
It's like, it's exciting
yeah.
and scary for some people. And again, here, do we go into the story of fear, which I can understand, so many lives are affected by the choices of a few people. And again, I feel like, oh gosh, I hope a lot of people can find that inner anchor within themselves to ground that love and to ground that light and not be tempted to go into fear. And I think that's a huge exercise in itself, because it's what's happening. And since we affect each other, when you're around the people that are in fear, well, to stay out of fear is a challenge. You have to make an effort there.
Yeah.
And I even know when we're talking about what is yours and what is mine. My father was an emotional man. He was okay, but he didn't express his emotions. And as a young child, it may not be expressed, but you feel it. And that is what happens with children. They start to take on or take care of their parents, or things like that, because if you cannot carry it or handle it, I can do it for you. That's a loyalty children have, and they do it. They don't think about it. It happens. So, and that's also part of family constellations. It's like to bring clarity in those patterns. What is yours? What is mine? And sometimes it's very helpful to say, but this was not mine. It was yours and I carried it. And then symbolically give it back to where it belongs can be very helpful. Yeah.
Okay, it's time to talk about family constellations. You've mentioned it a few times, and when I first invited you to join me on the podcast, this is the thing that was curious about, and like I love talking about all of the other things, and I know that family constellations is part of your experience. And I've heard a friend talk about it a couple of years ago, and I've heard you talk about it in, just mention it inside some of the calls that we're on for the human design group that we're in. And I was like, I want to know more, because my friends told me like just how amazing it was, and how like she was like, I don't even know how it happened, but this man who I'd never met before started walking like my dad.
It's magic. I know. That was my first experience too. I went, gosh, no. It's like, yeah, it
So what is it?
happens.
So what is it, and how does it work? What was your experience? Like whatever you want to
Yeah,
start
I'm
with.
using it now with human design. So, we're not off topic. I don't know how long family constellations has been around. 30 years maybe or so. And I think also 25 years ago, I was in this group training, 5 days. We were staying overnight. It was a retreat. And one guy in this group, he was, well, to say the least, he was not nice to me. He was really saying unkind things. And I thought, I don't even know you. What's happening here? God, behave. So it made me angry. I really thought, I really pushed him away. I thought, go away. I don't want you around. And these people that were giving the retreat were working with family constellations. And what they did on the last day, they said, okay, this has been enough. We're going to do a family constellation. I didn't know what it was. I really, so I had to go. I went to the toilet before it started, and I came back, and apparently they discussed some things. I missed that. And this guy, he walked up to me and he said, oh, so maybe, explain a little bit about about family constellations. You choose representatives for your family.
Okay.
In this case, it was a family.
So you're in a circle or?
You're in a group,
Yep.
in a group setting, and then you set an intention. And the one who has the question, and in this case, it was the man who was,
The
acting
horrible
out,
man.
the horrible man. So the intention was, well, I think I missed that part. I was in the toilet, so I think the intention was to bring clarity. What's happening here? And then in family constellations, it starts with you have a group of people and you ask intuitively people of the group, do you want to be a representative for my father? Yes. People very often say yes, and my mom, and so he was asked to pick people to represent his siblings, his parents. He picked me as his mom. He asked, do you want to be the representative of my mom? And I went, why? But of course I did it. So then in the next stage, what happens is the person who asked the question brings you intuitively, in the room where you are, puts you in a certain place in the room. So everybody gets their own place. So I was his mom. He put me really almost outside of the room. So I was in a far, far away corner. And then there was his father. And you also choose a representative for yourself. So you sort of make a constellation of your own family, how you've experienced it as a child, or how you experience it now. Doesn't really matter. And then the one who's guiding the constellation starts to ask questions. Ask the father questions, ask the mother questions. And the moment he put me in that role of his mother, this horrible man, all I could feel was so much love for him, so much love. My heart was overflowing. And I went, wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. I really enjoyed it. And well, to cut a long story short, the problem was with his father. He apparently always believed his father to do certain things well, and he projected everything on his mother. And apparently, I reminded him, because maybe of the way I looked or behaved or in that group, that I was his mom. He was unconsciously projecting this on me.
Wow.
And I could only say, gosh, I love you so much. You're my son. I love you. And then, with interventions and all the right shifting in position, after the conclusion of he cried so much, because he got to see you, as when it's your constellation, you watch, you're not part of it. In the end, you can take a part in it.
Okay.
You take your own place when it's finished, when it's done, but you watch it as if it's a movie, it's a play. And he was crying so much, and I knew, wow, this is magic, this is big, this is such, this is what happens. And then after that, we hugged each other and it was okay. And it still brings me goosebumps. So it's and after that, many, many magical experiences, many, and so it's a huge, I think it's such a big therapeutic tool. Talk about tools, but it brings to light the hidden dynamics that are there, that we live with every day. And a few of the principles of human design, we've talked about, we are human design geeks, but a lot of the principles in family constellations is, there are certain laws, and to bring order in a family system or in an organization, or whatever you want to do, there has to be a certain that these laws have to be, how do you say that? There's a law of belonging, for instance.
Okay. Yeah.
Everybody in there, in a system, has the right to belong. Whether you've been excluded from a family, whether your grandparents or some kind of uncle or great uncle or did something wrong in the war, or which was ignored, not talked about, or whatever, they're part of the system. So everybody has to be put in their rightful place again. And that brings a certain order in the family system that brings peace. And the same is, there's a hierarchy. We have parents. They're older than we are. We are their children, so we have to honor them as our parents. Very often it doesn't happen because as children, we, as I said, my dad was emotionally unstable, so I started to take care of him. I took on a role that was not mine. And then you have to take your original role, your position that's yours in the family system. Again, it brings peace. It's mom and dad next to each other. A lot of parents don't stand next to each other. The one is in front, the other one is behind, or they're not connected at all. And it becomes visible in the constellation. And then through interventions, by putting people in the right position, something starts to shift. And yeah, sometimes people are just released from big burdens they've been carrying and they didn't know they were carrying it. So it's really amazing. And there also has to be a balance between giving and taking. If it's all giving and no taking, or all taking and no giving, there's also a disbalance. So, and with siblings, the eldest child comes first. How often is there a competition or a jealousy between, the youngest or the oldest? Sort of trying to do, it's like a hierarchy. It's like, even dogs try it. You want to be higher in the hierarchy, in the position, closer to your parents, or it's not working because you're the youngest. I am the youngest, and I have to take that position. And when you do that in a family constellation, it brings relief, because when you're in a position that's not yours, you start to do things and work harder than you're supposed to do. You start to carry things, and children can carry a lot of things for their parents. So
Wow.
it's really amazing how it works.
And I suppose that would, like, if someone goes with a specific goal of working through something like that, is that what happens? My friend said that she didn't know what was going to happen. Like someone just invited her along and.
Yeah, but when you have a question, very often
Okay.
you have a constellation, and a constellation can take about 1 or 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
So maybe 2 a day. And then there are 2 people have a question, and then the rest of the group is a representative. And they can be invited to take a position for any one of a family, or, and even don't underestimate stillborn children, miscarriages. They're part of the system. And very often it was not talked about. So they have to be brought back into the system or accepted, or children loyal to stillborn children, or perhaps they were part of a twin or whatever. It shows up. It really shows up in the constellation. It becomes visible. So yeah, it gives me goosebumps over and over again how it
So
works.
You've had that experience personally, but you're a facilitator now as well.
I work with it, yeah, and I
Yeah.
started to use it with human design, and wow, it's again,
Can you talk us
I
through
just
how that works? Like, do you
yeah.
read
So
someone's
what
chart
there's a
first and then
big
invite them, or?
yeah no there's a big I have a big mat. Is
Yep.
it called mat? Yeah, I printed a 2 by 2 body graph.
Okay. Yep.
So and then for all the centers, I made
Yep.
felt. I cut the pieces. So for every center, there's a piece, and then I have tape, blue, a black, and a red
Red.
tape.
Yep.
And I ask the one who is going to do the constellation. So if it's you, I tell, okay, take your body graph and just fill in your design on the big mat. So you no, well, that's a
Yep.
procedure. You do that by yourself. So you connect to the mat and you connect to the body graph. And even without a question, last week I facilitated one, and you stand in front of your design, you look at it. It's a big mat, so you can walk over it and just sense into it. And this lady was very defined in the root. She's a pure manifesting generator, so that means the sacral and the throat connected. And she had a connection between the root and the spleen. I I know her. She's always busy physically. She has to be physical. That's her strength. She knows everything about the body. Great strength. And so she felt very comfortable there and very safe. And before the constellations, before I start the work, the constellation, I let people say, okay, this is my energy. This is my unique flow of energy, and it's perfect for me. Just to own it. And then they start walking because there are conditionings, of course, everywhere. And she started walking and walking. And at a certain stage, she stepped on the head center, which is open. It's undefined for her. And she started to become very unstable and almost crying, feeling so unsafe because she's so used to being in the defined
Mm.
area, feeling very unstable. So, an intervention can be, do you want someone standing behind you? So, one of the other participants took a place behind her. And that gave her some peace. But the moment the person went away, she started to shake again. So I thought, okay, new intervention, start walking. See if there's something around in your body ground, within the body ground. Yeah, I feel safe here. Well, no, start walking. And I saw she was trying out the centers and she was avoiding the G center. And I went, so that's what I noticed. I thought, okay. And it's undefined in her chart. So I thought, okay, you're avoiding. Just a little sidestep. Animals are great at sensing and being part of a constellation. And one of my cats was in a room. He stepped on the mat. And as a Buddha, he sat on the G center. I was really
Taken aback.
what's happening? It was exactly what I wanted to say. And then I suggested the lady, I said, how about the G center? You want to try that? I see the cat is sitting there. Oh, let me try for myself. And she stood there and something shifted. She really could connect to herself. And she felt she sank to her knees and she said, wow, this is what I need. This feeling of belonging to me. So it again, goosebumps. So it's there. The key is there, the healing is there. And then I asked her, if you sit here and you look at the head center, what happens? Yeah, it's fine. I can, when I'm connected here, it's easy for me. So, it's in the body graph. You can't make it up. And I've seen it happening with big family things happening within a body graph. It's in the tribal centers. You can't make it up. It's in the tribal circuitry. So yeah, it's such a joy to do this and to see how it works and how magical it is. So, and you can make a constellation of just about everything. So you can use human design, you can use gene keys, you can, be in an organization where there are a lot of conflicts. There's always projections coming from, we're full of projections. If there's a boss you can deal with, maybe he reminds you of your father, things like that. So yeah, it's amazing.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you're doing that from home. Is that
Yeah, because I heard you can do it online, but no,
yeah, I
it's
was
not.
wondering.
It is so powerful to have the people in the room and to get feedback from the field, because it's all, again, it's all interconnected. You can wonder, why do I know? Like you said, your friend, how can I walk like he started to walk like my father. How? It happens because it's in the field. It's there. Every energy, every thought, they always say energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transformed. It's there. The patterns are there. And people think I have to be very sensitive or intuitive. No, you can feel it. And maybe some people can express a little bit more of what they feel, a bit more experienced. But it gives such a great picture of the dynamic that is there. And mom and dad not seeing each other, not communicating with each other, children stepping in between, being very loyal to their parents. Wow, it's amazing. And I think what's important to add, because you cannot solve everything with family constellations, and I can understand as a child when you've been abused or when you're not in touch with your parents anymore, a simple family constellation, can be very challenging. And because you really, really, really have to accept your parents as your parents. They even make you bow before your parents and say, you are my mom, you are my dad, I am the child.
Okay.
And for some people, that can be very difficult. And I think the one thing that I feel that you can always do and that needs to be done, they gave you life. So to be able to thank them for giving you the life that you have. And other than that, you can look for healing, or, it's not something that helps everybody, but it can give a huge insight, and even, problems that go back in the line of your ancestors. Really, how it transfers into some children carrying a burden for their great grandmother.
Yeah.
And it's true. I've seen it happening. Your mind can say, "Oh gosh, this is ridiculous. This is bullshit," but it's happening. I've seen too much proof that it's true.
Wow.
So I suggest you try it,
Yeah,
Nadine.
well, it's a shame that you can't do it online, but I understand the value of doing it in person. So I guess we have to seek people out where we live, myself and the listeners. But if I'm just aware that we've hit our hour.
You're kidding.
No, it's gone so quickly. And I try not to be too rigid with time, but I also appreciate that we have our, lives to get on with. We're going to put your details in our guest directory. Do you work with the Gene Keys and human design as well? Like if someone wanted to connect with you to have a reading or...
Yeah, but now that I've really started to work with the experience, there's so many people that can do readings, which I do it, but the experience.
I
I've been part of,
you
yeah,
know, it
it's,
might be if it might be
if they wanted
a
to,
helpful tool to for someone to use
sure.
going into a family constellation, even if it wasn't with you. I would assume
Yeah,
to have a bit
definitely.
more of an understanding of human design. And I think that
Yeah.
yes, there are a lot of people doing it, and but you know, people need to find the right person for them, and so
Oh,
you might be
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, and what I always do, it's the human design, but I look at the astrology
Yeah,
to get a deeper understanding of the story.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And I think, family constellations in Europe is big. There
Hmm.
are therapists doing it big time. I don't know about Australia
I'm
or the
not
other
sure.
parts
I'm
of the
not
world.
sure.
How many people are there
I have no
just
idea.
working with it and facilitating it? No, but here, it's almost on every corner of the street.
Yeah,
You can
right.
find someone who works with it.
That's because it's
But
such a small country,
no,
as you
but even
mentioned
in
previously.
Germany and
Okay.
yeah, I think. But I also feel like the Netherlands, they often, are one of the first. I don't know why that is,
Early
to try
adopters.
out new
Mm.
things, and this was a German physiotherapist, no, psychiatrist, I
Okay.
think, who founded the family constellation.
Yeah.
So in Europe, it's big. Yeah,
Yeah, it sounds really
yeah, it's a
interesting.
joy to work with it.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
so much for sharing your insights with us. It's
Thank you,
yeah, it's been
Nadine.
a real pleasure to have a chat with you and find out more about you because we don't always get to do that when we're on our human
True.
design calls. And
Yeah,
yeah, I've loved hearing all about your journey and the amazing wisdom that you have. So
yeah.
thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
sharing with us.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Wow. It was a joy. Thank you, Nadine.
No worries.